All right, we're up there, big guy.
Welcome, everybody, to Leighton's Loft, our weekly podcast here about cards, life, being an entrepreneur, being a dad, and everything in between. Thanks for joining us with my compadre, Lou. How are you today, Lou?
I'm doing very well today. Glad to get this going. Looking forward to tonight's show. Should be interesting.
Absolutely. What's up, Matt, James, Crystal, Arnie, Donald? Good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining us here on Leighton's Loft weekly podcast. And Lou, I think I'd be remiss if we didn't mention, for those that are going to listen after, we can guarantee you two things. One, you've missed out on a good time. And two, if you listen afterwards, you will have missed out on a chance to win one of 7 prizes, which ironically is Mickey Mantle's number and the top of the hour guest today at 5 o'clock. Why don't you give us a little background about Mr. Howard and his book?
We have Howard Burman, who's written a book on Mickey Mantle, but kind of a different book. I mean, we all know about Mickey Mantle, the professional athlete, and he's talking about his upbringing with his father, Mutt, and how his father played into shaping Mickey as a professional athlete and what his upbringing was like in Depression-era Oklahoma, and Howard he's a screenwriter, and this is a theatrical style book. Some of this stuff is word for word about conversations. It's written in a theatrical style. But we're going to learn a lot more about Mickey Mantle in his younger years and how he came to be one of the greatest of all time.
Really excited about it. On top of Howard joining us at 5 o'clock, I certainly do not know Mickey, never knew Mickey, never saw him play, but my father did. I was born in Brooklyn. My father was born in Brooklyn, and apparently so was Howard. And so it's interesting that Howard's father took him to Ebbets Field, whereas my father generally went to Yankee Stadium, although he did sometimes visit Ebbets Field as well. And what's interesting is that my second job out of college was working for an auction house named Leland's. And we'll leave it for the top of the hour, but let's just say I secured a very important Mickey Mantle artifact on consignment for Leland's that sold for north of 6 figures when I was in my 20s.
Wow.
So I flew down to Oklahoma, but we're going to talk about the top of the hour. Hey, what's up, Danny? Thanks for joining us. Bry, Nick, James, Mario, Gus, Ken, the rest of the gang here on Leighton's Loft weekly podcast.
Wait a second. This artifact came from Oklahoma?
Oh, it did. I don't want to talk more about it because I want to tease a little bit, Lou. I'm learning from you.
No,
if I give them all the juice up front, they're not going to come for the dessert, you know?
I like it. So Howard's going to like this too, I bet.
Well, like I said, sometimes, Lou, and you and I have known each other now, believe it or not, for a little while. Sometimes things just come to be for a reason. And this is one where, once again, Lou, thanks for hooking this up. Like I said, we have Howard Burman, who wrote Much Dream, at the top of the hour joining us here at 5 o'clock. Today will be audio only for Howard. Howard's
a California resident. He's on the run from the wildfires out there. He's been evacuated. So he's still doing the interview with us, but he's going to be doing it by phone.
Yep. So we are fortunate enough and grateful to have Howard joining us at the top of the hour. So as we kind of get into the show today, I figured I'm going to get it off my chest early because, as many of you know, I kind of wear my heart in my sleeve here, both for Vintage Breaks and at the Loft. And today is National Dog Day. So, happy National Dog Day for those doggies that are out there, for those that we've lost, like my dear beloved Argy Bear just a few weeks ago. Just wanted to say that to start the show. Next thing is hobby related. Hey, afternoon, Gary. So I had someone come down yesterday. It's someone that we're going to do business with. They're going to provide, some social media services for Vintage Breaks.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I'm really excited about that. So he also is a collector. And I want to talk a little bit about this idea of paper profits. I know it's a very common term in the stock market, and this notion that, hey, right, your asset, your stock has gone up a lot, and you're sitting on, 100 shares, 1,000 shares, and oh my goodness, it's worth $43 trillion.
Yeah, but it's all theoretical.
Until you sell.
Right.
So, and by the way, this is a guy, we could have had beers, been drinking all day. We were talking earlier today and said the only thing that was missing yesterday, because we ended up spending several hours talking business and such, getting to know each other, was the beers. So he was telling me he was fortunate enough, he collects basketball, and before the recent appreciation of value on the 1969 Topps Kareem Abdul-Jabbar rookie, which I'll show you right here. Perfect. See, sometimes things would just work out. I didn't have it planned, but it was around me. I mean, the discussion was planned, but I didn't realize I had a Jabbar right here. So he bought a bunch of 4s, 5s, and 6s for his collection, thinking it was in his budget. Hey, they're pretty cheap, right? And they've now all appreciated very, very nicely. Okay. So we were talking about it yesterday. And by the way, folks, we'll be talking about the 7 prizes we're going to give away from the Loft today for our participation promo. For those of you not familiar, all you have to do is drop in our chat while we're live. So when you listen afterwards, the knowledge is still free. The laughs are free. But if you'd like to win one of the 7 prizes that we have here every week on our podcast, you do need to join us live. And I think that's what really makes our podcast fun, Lou, is we kind of have this hybrid approach where, once again, I always give you credit. You said, hey, let's leverage a live audience. Let's still have a podcast, but get some good energy. And Lou, what are we only a few weeks in? It's only 4 or 5 weeks in, right? It feels like it's months.
Oh, no, we're more than 4 or 5 weeks in, yeah.
Oh, wow. See, that's what happens when you get stuck at home for COVID.
You're a busy guy, so.
Yeah, I guess
that's track,
that's what happens. So anyway, Lou, we're talking yesterday, and my buddy was.
I want to mention along those lines, we got people here like Ernie and Gary and some of our other Ben. They're starting watch parties with the program. And by the way, find a good collectors group or a group that you're in that might enjoy the program, and start a watch party in that group, or start a watch party just on your page. And when you do that, 8 weeks. Thank you, Matthew. When you do that, you get a second entry into our 7 prize giveaway at the end of the show.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, very cool.
We usually have between 50 and 100 names. So get an extra name, do the math. You got a much better chance of winning at least one of those 7. Right. Which, speaking of which, I want to tell Howard at the top of the hour, one of the main reasons and the main reason why we give away 7 prizes, on our old Vintage Breaks PSA show, on our new podcast, is because of Mickey, and not just my tie when I went to Oklahoma all those years ago, but also when we pulled the Mickey Mantle out of the 1955 Bowman pack. We kind of feel like we owed it to him. Yeah. So anyway, getting back to my buddy Patrick and his collection. So he's got several of those Jabbar rookies from '69. And he said he really wants a 7, but they've gotten up there in price. And, I didn't look before the show today. I could look live right now. Yeah. I bet you it's going to be somewhere between 5,000 and 10,000, which is pretty crazy considering where they were just a few months back. Let's see here. I'm going to give us a actual example of what they're going for. Okay. So can we find even one that's listed, Lou? That's part of it. Also, the demand is really strong right now. Oh, my goodness. So it's actually more than I thought. It's about approximately a $10,000 to $12,000 or $14,000 card.
Holy cow. Wow.
In a 7.
Yeah.
So he's got a couple 4s, 5s, and 6s. And he said, hey, Leighton, I really want a 7. What should I do? I'm looking at the numbers. We roughly had an idea. I thought it was a little bit less. And, Leighton, that's going to, he does okay for himself, right? But that's going to really damage the wallet. You're going to take a big hit. And so this is what we were talking about. Listen, Patrick, if you're already up a bunch on some of the other examples of Jabbar, and you don't really want them anyway, take the paper money off the table, cash it in for real money, parlay that all into, and this is when I think he understood, because not that 7's super high grade, but Lou, when it comes down to it, if we talk about in the years to come that there's still a huge influx of collectors, he'll be much better off with a 7 in his collection than a handful of 4, 5s, and 6s.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. Yeah, so that a higher graded example would be better for him from an investment standpoint.
Yes. Yeah. Because generally, Lou, no matter what, whether it be you are new to the hobby, you're a little bit of you have a little bit of experience, or you're a veteran. Generally, no matter where you are in life, people want the best. So it's not that. Listen, I have a 5, and I'm very happy with this card. It's gorgeous, it's a little bit off-centered. But the point is, when you talk about people coming in and they may really take $50,000, $250,000, $500,000, and take that of their portfolio and invest that in cash, they don't really want to buy a 5.
Right.
They want to buy an 8 or a 9. So I don't necessarily think 7's high grade, but where the Jabbar is going, an 8 might make you lose your lunch in terms of what they're going for.
as we talked about, I think it was a week or two ago, we talked about some of there are transaction costs with all these sales and things like that as well. So doing multiple examples, selling multiple examples just multiplies your transaction costs as well.
It also increases your risk.
Yeah.
Because, even though you could say, hey, you're diversified, sure. But the way that eBay works these days, if you use eBay to liquidate your cards and sell them, unless you do it through a third party, they have a really nasty return policy that isn't that well known by many collectors. Meaning eBay's always had a return policy, but only in recent time, in the last 12 months or so, even though they're not targeting collectors, gang, they are looking out for their marketplace. And they basically have, hey, what's up, Lucas? They now have a policy that is not friendly to people that are selling cards on eBay where prices fluctuate. Because you can imagine that if someone bought a card and it went up a lot, they're probably super duper happy. But imagine it went down a lot in the next 30 days. Hey, you and I, Lou, we might just say we take our lumps and we move on, right? Well, there's some others out there that can look in between the lines and the letters of the law in terms of eBay's return policy, and they can return that card to you for what they paid for it, even though it's changed in market value.
Up to 30 days?
No, it's actually longer, believe it or not.
Really?
So I can investigate it further for next week's episode.
Man, if I could buy a stock and have the option to return it.
Are you kidding me? We'd all be loaded. Listen, it's like buying the Back to the Future almanac from the movie.
Right.
Which, by the way, shout out to Darren Ravel. I know he would love to buy for his collection. He likes movie props like that. Like, that would be a great movie prop, to have in like a little shadow box. If you could get the copy of the Biff's almanac that he had, and I think it was Back to the Future 2 or 3.
Yeah.
Where, as you know, we know you could bet all the sports games after knowing the scores, probably do pretty well, right?
Absolutely. But geez, if you had a return policy on stocks, that would be great. So
yeah, so I think what's happening now is places like StockX, places like MySlabs, various Facebook groups, of course, like Vintage Breaks, Buy, Sell, Trade, and plenty of others. There's a reason why, Lou, that people are trying to do their transactions of graded cards off of eBay.
Wow. Brian says PayPal is 6 months.
Like I said, I don't know exactly I don't know exactly, what the deal is in terms of, the number of days. I just know it's not great. And as James say, you get these, hey, sorry, my son bought it without my permission.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, if everyone did that, that's not that great.
No. But that puts you at risk and you can only lose.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I want to talk about on today's show, we have 15 minutes, shift gears for a moment. Oh, by the way, for those of you that don't know, first place in our Leighton's Loft giveaway today is these Fernando Tatis Topps Chrome Update Family Business.
Yes.
PSA 10 rookie. We're going to give away. That's first place. Second place is going to be a $50 break credit. Third place will be a 1979 O-Pee-Chee hockey set break spot. And the last 4 prizes we'll give away today, courtesy of Vintage Breaks, is a $10 credit to vintagebreaks.com. And Lou, if they like, next week we're going to be giving away this Michael Jordan Fleer medal, which has become very popular, from 1995.
Nice. I like it.
So those are today's prizes. I want to shift gears for a minute to talk about music.
Oh.
And I was curious because we've never really asked Lou, certainly many, if not all of us, have not seen any live music for quite some time.
Right.
But I wanted to ask not only what was your last live show, but really, like, basically, who's your current favorite artist or band? And then who's your favorite artist or band of, let's say, of 10 or 20 years ago?
Oh,
and is it the same or is it different? So for you, Lou, who is it? Who was your favorite band of 10 or 20 years ago, or favorite singer, and who is it today?
Wait a second. People who know me would say Lou doesn't know that there's been music in the last 20 years. So,
well, then we already know your answer, Lou. Whatever you say will be the same as as whatever it is today. That's great.
All right. The last band I saw was Fleetwood Mac at the TD Garden.
Okay. Afternoon, Lee Chow. What's up, Ben?
Last summer. Good show. glad to see them. The show before that was Tom Petty on his last tour. I saw him a couple months before he died, and I'm a huge Tom Petty fan. That's my guy. Tom is my guy.
So I grew up, I was fortunate enough to see Tom Petty at the Garden long ago. I've seen Tom Petty quite a bit. I did not see him in his last tour. Yep. And it just goes to show you why you don't count your chickens. I remember saying to myself and my wife, oh, it's not a big deal. We'll catch him on the next one.
The interesting part about that was I'm not big on. When I was a kid, I went to a ton of concerts. I was one of these guys. If I liked the act, I would see him all through New England. I'd see him in Hartford. I'd see him in Boston or Springfield or Worcester, and then up to Portland, Maine, and things like that. That's how much I love live music. Haven't done it in a while. I wasn't going to go to see the show, but my daughter wanted to go see him. And I said, all right, cool. If you want to go, we'll go. And I took my son too, and we went. And obviously this was I think this was July. I think this was late July that year, and he died in October. But yeah, I'm glad I went, because I wouldn't have gone if it weren't for my daughter just saying she wanted to go.
Listen, I wish I would have gone. I'm glad that you were able to go, Lou, and lots of other people were able to see him. The reason why I'm bringing it up is I feel like a lot of us are missing music. And I did not, Chef. I wish I did. It would have been cool. One of the best shows I ever saw, I grew up, I was a big Allman Brothers fan, I'd say probably from the point of,
really?
I would say maybe 15, 17, something like that, 14, 15. And saw a lot of shows at the Garden State Arts Center, saw them at the Beacon Theater a lot, and happened, my lovely wife got me tickets to the last show at the Beacon Theater. And of course, we lost Greg not that long ago. But, I saw bands like Foo Fighters in the last few years. I think I mentioned I saw Green Day by myself because I was really wanted to see them. Yeah. And I saw them. I forgot where it was. Was it Starland Ballroom in the city? It might have been. And it was an experience. If I was a talented writer, I would have wrote a blog about it. But, rather be on air and talk about it. But one of my favorite things.
James, I don't know if I'd have said that in public, but that's okay.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. Oh, 3 Doors Down. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I saw Foo Fighters. It's funny. I almost said Shea Stadium, but it's really Citi Field.
Yeah.
Sound like an old fella here. I've seen lots of different bands, but I would tell you that I covet live music. And what I wanted to know is, while we're watching today, let's, Lou, give me something a little, late. I don't like to tell people I like this individual or band, or I used to. But tell me something like that. That's what I want to hear, the good stuff.
Oh, yeah. And some of the local shows, the show I do occasionally is songs you're embarrassed to love. And,
oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah. And
so maybe you're a song or an artist that
you're embarrassed to love.
Maybe you're not going to tell everyone from the mountaintops.
Yep. Like one of mine is If I Could Turn Back Time by Cher. Is a song.
Oh, that's not bad.
It embarrasses the hell out of me, but it's a song I really
it is what it is. But I can definitely now picture you, Lou. I hope you send me you text me a 20-second clip of you taking a shot of bourbon and blasting that from home. I'm gonna laugh my ass off. I really would like to see that. Yeah. The Cure, that's cool, Lou. I never saw the Cure, Chef. I never saw the Cure. I actually want to see Coldplay. I heard they put on a cool show. U2 I thoroughly enjoyed. I'm glad I've seen them several times. But Lou, are you ready for my, my wife knows that I like her, and I think her music's totally cool. And so this is not like Tiffany I liked when I was, 11 years old. So I'm happy to tell you that. Oh, Pantera? Sure. I used to listen to Metallica and still do. But I listened to Metallica when I was 14 years old, 15 years old, working for my father's companies in the summer in the warehouse. These guys love snakes. They bring snakes to work, and they would blast Metallica. And also, Pantera, all that stuff.
See, Chris saved me. He came up with Air Supply.
Thank God. Yeah, Chris just said Air Supply.
Oh, Sam and John sing If I Could Turn Back. I like it.
Oh, my God. That would be great. Wait, they actually sing that?
Yeah.
No, Doug.
You've never heard it? You got to go in the office more.
Yeah, I was going to say I'm missing out on too much good stuff. Oh, I've never seen Offspring. That'll be totally cool. Monty says, all right, Monty's clarifying that it was a gift to his wife, was the Backstreet Boys.
Come on, Monty, own it.
Yeah. Wait, who did Julie make me go to that I was not pleased? What it is? I mentally blocked it out, so I don't even remember. No, interesting. I love the Beacon Theater, Monty. So here's mine. I don't know if anyone out there has heard of her or is into her, but Lindsay Sterling. I'm very into like the electronic violin.
Yep.
I think it's very cool. I used to really like Boyd Tinsley. He was in the Dave Matthews Band. I love Dave Matthews. I've seen a ton of shows growing up. I mean, I'm not so into like if you told me the last few albums for Dave Matthews, I wouldn't really know.
Yeah.
Hey, what's up, Stu? But yet I've been to a ton of his live shows, and Boyd Tinsley was an unbelievable violinist.
Oh yeah, and Lindsay Sterling, a great artist. The videos are great. She's a dancer.
She's unbelievable. Plus, she's an entrepreneur. I totally dig that. She, a lot of people hated on her in the beginning, and she's like, yeah, but I think my stuff is great.
I see one of you, but I love the small venues. We've got a couple small venues here on the coast. There's the Hampton Beach Casino, which has some good, fairly high-level acts, and there's Blue Ocean, which is, more like, for example, every year at Blue Ocean, I see Southside Johnny. I love Southside Johnny.
Cool.
So I go to see him. But
oh, that's interesting. I know Lizzie Hale is. That's very cool. Yeah, Lindsay Sterling is, as you said, Monty, good shit. Ernie saw Madonna and Debbie Gibson. Very interesting.
Together?
That's what he said. I don't know if he means he said in concert. I was thinking maybe after hours. Stu, you thought I was going to like Enya. Very interesting.
I saw Rick Springfield in concert once.
That's cool.
I was 24 or 25, I think, and I was the oldest person in the building, I believe.
So I don't know if our good buddy Jim is watching from Karma Records today. Lincoln Park, very cool. But we have done this once before, so I'd like to do it again. Next week on the show, hopefully we'll have, whether it be Jim or we'll talk to him in the coming weeks, I'd like to do something, Lou, where we're going to get everyone's favorite artists, and, I'd like to take a poll, and maybe whoever's the favorite artist of our group will buy something really cool, like a package from Karma Records, and we'll give it away on a future episode of The Loft, on the podcast, or on Vintage Breaks, whatever the case may be. We'll have some fun.
I like it. I bet we all have some great concert stories and some,
Yeah, so we only have a few minutes left. We could talk cards, but this is what I want to see if you could check out right here. So can you check out this beautiful Rutgers t-shirt I'm wearing? I wore it specifically today because I want to talk about t-shirts.
James is here. The threat there.
Oh, awesome, Jim. Very cool. Jim, you're like Batman. All you got to do is just, show a signal and you're here. So, Jim, we're going to find out who the group's favorite artist is. We're going to vote on it. And then we're going to buy a package of stuff from Karma Records and you and the gang to support. And then we're going to give it away on the Loft. So before we get to T-shirts, I'm glad that Jim is on. So one of the things I wanted to cover today, Lou, I'd love to hear from other fellow entrepreneurs out there, business owners, or to be fair, if you're just real proud as an employee and you want us to try to support, when I say us, I don't mean just Vintage Breaks or just Collect or me or Lou, but our community. If there's some way we can support a business that you're proud of that maybe's been, hit a little bit during COVID the last few months, to be fair, maybe hurt a lot, we would love to try, to help. And so obviously it's not going to be a ton of business for Jim and Karma Records, but maybe some other folks will buy some records from them. I know Chris Coe has, some others from the group. As soon as Jim can help me set up my loft with the proper music equipment, I plan to be taking up my DJ passion again. So nice. I don't know if Julie can hear that from downstairs. Hopefully she can't.
And by the way, if anybody here doesn't follow Karma Records or James on Facebook or all the other outlets, a great follow. So make sure you hook up with him.
Absolutely. Very cool. I'm glad that, Matt, you got your T-shirt. We now have Vintage Breaks T-shirts for sale, Lou, at vintagebreaks.com. But before we have on Howard in just a few minutes, so this is what I wanted to ask. So this T-shirt, 100% bought it when I was in college. Mm-hmm. Let's assume I bought it in the last year, which I can't guarantee. The fact that I can still wear it is fantastic. It is from the year 2000 because I graduated in 2000. Once again, it could have been from a year or two before. I don't know. They're going to call me L Train, Chef. I already have a name. No, dude, I'm going with L Train, man.
L Train, I like it.
Yeah. That's going to be my name. My dream is to be able to DJ with Shaq. I want to open a pack with Shaq and then DJ, and then it's all good.
I like it.
Yeah, no, listen, I got a buddy out in San Diego who actually just moved out your neck of the woods, Lou. So part of it. When we come up, we're hoping to see you. My family. I'm hoping to see John and his lovely girlfriend.
Yep.
So we're looking forward to a fall trip. Hey, what's up, Stephen? Welcome for joining us. Thanks for joining us here on The Loft, our live podcast weekly. You can find us at 4:30 p.m. Eastern to 5:30, where frankly we just shoot the shit. We talk about old T-shirts. We talk about baseball cards. We talk about interesting music, some might say.
All right, let's bring Doug.
Oh, Dougie, please tell us, Dougie.
We'll bring Doug on, and I'll get our guests lined up.
Great.
So, Doug, you have some breaking news for us?
Talk to me, Dougie. Wow, Dougie, you could be a really good reliever in baseball with that beard.
I'm Mariano Rivera. What do you know who I am? So,
yeah,
actually, right here from the man, the myth, the legend, J5. These are what we've just apparently he closed. They are here.
Great. So we just bought the 1960 and the 62 sets that I talked to J5 about earlier.
Yes, we did.
Great. So that's very cool. So our company, justcollect.com, if you want to check us out, we always offer free appraisals, always buying vintage cards such as Jimmy Brown's rookie, Jimmy Brown's second year, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and of course, the 1960 and 1962 Topps baseball sets that Dougie just mentioned. That individual contacted us through our website. They have more sets. And, of course, J5, being J5, said, no, listen, you don't have to send in everything at once. Why don't you test the waters, see if you like what you hear, and if you do, you can send in more stuff next time. So these are mid-grade 1960 and 1962 Topps baseball ungraded sets. If we do offer them through Vintage Breaks, which I have no idea, I haven't seen them, so I couldn't tell you if we will. Yes, call EM80. I like that. Call Emily in the office at 732-828-2261 for your size that you need for your T-shirt.
Also, Leighton, we also have the 82 Wrestling Stars, too. That's
you stole my thunder. We'll talk about that in a little bit after Howard. That's great.
All right.
All right. Thanks, Doug. We appreciate the update here. We've got our guests here for you, Leighton.
Great. Hi, Howard. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, hanging in there. Thanks. So congratulations on Mutt's dream, making the Mick. How long did this type of project take for you, Howard?
Oh, it took about 2 years, about a year of research, and then the writing and the editing.
And as part of that journey, Howard, did you go down to Oklahoma and actually see where Mutt and the Mick grew up?
No, I didn't. I thought about it, and then I realized, well, I've got pictures of the house, and I've got pictures of the barn where Mutt threw baseballs to Mickey to bat against forever, and the rest of the area is pretty much gone. It was filled with chat fields, and these were fields that were covered with lead and zinc dust, and so much of the area where Mickey grew up is condemned. You can't even get into it anymore. The high school is still there, of course, in Commerce, but that's a few miles away. So there really wasn't any great value in going there.
Sure. So out of curiosity, Howard, in terms of where the actual metal wall is it in Commerce or is it in a different town?
I'm sorry, could you say again?
Sure. Where Mickey would hit, the balls that his dad would, soft toss him and learn how to switch hit against that wall, against the barn.
Yeah.
Is it in Commerce?
Yeah, that was in Commerce, but they lived in a lot of places before they got to Commerce. Mickey was born in Spavinaw, a very little town. They lived in Pitcher for a while and Whitehorse for a while. I mean, these were really, really poor areas. They didn't have running water through much of the time there. They didn't have indoor plumbing. But by the time they moved to Commerce, that's where his house was that's famous, and it's still there, and there's a plaque saying this is where Mickey Mantle grew up.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that in just a few, Howard. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? We noticed when we were doing our research, where you were born happens to be something that we have in common.
I'm sorry, I'm having a little trouble with the signal breaking up. Do you mind asking that again?
Oh, sure. So I'll try to speak up a little bit louder. Maybe that'll help also. I was curious, where were you born and raised, Howard?
Mutt. Well, the family came from Mississippi.
Oh no, you, Howard.
And then,
Now, Howard, where were you born and raised?
oh, where was I born?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I was born in Brooklyn. I was
Okay.
a Dodger fan, and I would have told you, I would have bet anything that Duke Snider was the best center fielder in Brooklyn, in New York in those days, and that Mickey was second, and that probably Willie was third. Had any of my friends even slightly suggested that Mickey was better than Duke, I would have argued with him till I was blue in the face. But you know what? Deep down, I knew, because one day I came down to breakfast. My father was already there reading the newspaper, and he said, "You're not going to believe this, Howard. This is amazing." I said, "What?" He said, "The Dodgers just traded even up Mickey Mantle for Duke Snider." And you know what? I mean, I'm 9 years old, so I thought, what do I know? I mean, maybe that's true. And I'm thinking, deep down, yeah, that's a really good trade. But I would never have admitted it.
I like it.
Well, Howard, tell us a little bit how you got involved and interested in Mickey Mantle and his story. It sounds like a little bit, you're certainly interested in his career, but it sounds like you were interested more about his upbringing and kind of before Mickey became Mickey. Why don't you tell us about how you got interested in that, considering you did grow up a Dodger fan?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm trained as a playwright, so I tend to see things in 3 acts. And if we look at Act 3, which we know what happened, he became an alcoholic and had all sorts of difficulties. He was a womanizer. He had many problems. He was not a very good father. We know that. But where's the genesis of that? The genesis is in Act 1. We're at the beginning of one's life. We know Act 2. Everybody knows Act 2. That's the story of the great Mickey Mantle, the great hitter, the great baseball player that he became. That's really clear. But the whole idea, that the thing that really got me interested is that I wanted to write a book about Mickey Mantle, the boy, the man, who is not the same as the Mick. That's the legend. So I was trying to make a distinction between the man and the boy and the legend that became the Mick. And I think you find that legend in his early years growing up in the area in Oklahoma where he did. He was insecure. He was shy. He wet his bed until he was quite a bit older. He was sexually molested. He had all sorts of issues. But later, I think, he ended up dealing with it by drinking a lot.
Which is really a shame, Howard, because obviously, a lot of folks say that, those types of issues start, in your home when you're very, very young. Yeah.
The idea of fathers playing catch with their sons is elemental, isn't it? I mean, it's so much a part of the American mythos. I know my father threw batting practice to me till his arm virtually fell off. But my career came up just a little bit short of Mickey's. Actually, it came up a little bit short of making my high school baseball team, but that's another story. But the whole idea of fathers playing catch with their sons, mothers playing catch with their daughters and their sons is part of the American tradition, and certainly was true in Mickey's case. Now, when I started doing the book, I thought, well, maybe I'm going to find the story of an abusive father. We know those stories. We know Lorenzo Ball and his father, and you see, and his father, and stories. But not so in Mickey's case. Mickey really loved his father. The relationship was good. They were best friends. It was really a delightful story of 2 guys who got along extremely well.
So what was the genesis of Mickey's emotional battles? Because when we start talking about the alcoholism, the first thing you go to is, well, that was the environment, or he was genetically predisposed because there was addiction in his family. And it sounds like if they had a good relationship, a solid relationship, and Mutt was a good father, how did Mickey arrive to be the nervous young man that he turned out to be?
Yeah. Mutt was not a drinker particularly. He'd go with the guys sometimes and Friday night down to the local cafe, but he wasn't a heavy drinker. There was not alcoholism in the family at all, but there was a great deal of insecurity on Mickey's part. And I think that's what drove him. He never, here's the thing. Mutt's dream was to make Mickey the great player that he ultimately became. That was his dream. It was always his dream. Before Mickey was born, it was his dream. He threw baseballs into Mickey's crib when he was a little kid, so much so that his mother had to keep taking the balls out and hiding them, and said there were times that young Mickey looked like he was on ball bearings in his crib. He was rolling around on the ball so much. That was Mutt's dream. Always, always, always. As a catcher, by the way. He wanted Mickey to be a catcher. Named him after Mickey Cochran, the great catcher who was then playing for Philadelphia. Mickey much later said, geez, I never knew that Mickey Cochran's real name was Gordon, or hated to have been called Gordon. And it would have been different, wouldn't it? You wouldn't. I mean, Gordon Mantle doesn't quite sound the same as Mickey Mantle. It kind of flows off the tongue very nicely as Mickey Mantle. But when there was much dream, but as soon as Mickey makes the majors, very shortly thereafter, his father dies. Most of the men in Mickey's family died early from lung disease, from working in the mines. Mutt did the same thing. So he never saw never saw his dream realized, never saw Mickey become the player that he ultimately became. And so I think that all through his life, Mickey was, if you will, looking over his shoulder, thinking, am I pleasing my father? All I want to do is please my father. And if I make a mistake, he's not going to like it. Even when Mickey was playing ball as a young man, he could hit 3 home runs in a game. Mutt wouldn't say anything. He'd make one error, and Mutt would be all over him because of the error. Mutt's dream drove the Mick all of his life. Baseball, as we know, is a ghost story. People are always being compared to players of the past and people from the past. And Mickey had additional pressure that he was replacing Ruth, Gehrig, and DiMaggio with the Yankees in New York. That's pressure in and of itself. And I think that's what led to his alcoholism.
Very interesting. If you had to share with us a little nugget from the book so we can try to spur some sales from you here, what would you share with everyone that, without giving away the whole book and getting them interested, because I peeked at it. I did not have the chance yet to read it, but I wanted to share with you my experience with Mickey Mantle in just a minute or two. I love that you personally, for me, Howard, I would buy the book because it's very easy to find information about Mickey when he was playing. At the very least, you could take his baseball card, which I have right here. It happens to be his last regular issued card from 1969 Topps. And prior to the internet, you could have seen all the stats of his entire career right here. So I love that you, as a writer, looked at his life as this 3-act. I'm not sure how to put it, and play. And you're not focusing on at the end when things were. Listen, let's be honest. He was in his decline, and during his career is very easy to see and was well documented because he played in New York. So, go ahead, Howard.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, not at all. I was just going to say, I think it's really interesting what you did working on the first part, but please go ahead.
Yeah, I think Mickey is a tragic hero, and not a victim. He's the hero of his own life, and he's a tragic hero in a traditional sense. Again, here I go back to my playwriting experience, but he's Sophocles, he's Creon, he's many of the Shakespearean heroes. They all have the same pattern, and this is what interested me. The pattern is they come from nothing, and they ascend to great heights in whatever field. They can be a king, or in this case, a baseball great. And then they fall from that height because of their own flaws, their own insecurities in Mickey's case, his own inability to deal with having to live up to his father's image of him all the time. But he ultimately comes to understand that and accept it. And that is absolutely the key to the book. Mickey, at the end of his life, says to kids, hey, don't be like Mickey. I'm a lousy role model.
Yep.
And he came to learn the difference between being a role model and a hero. He was a great hero. People, me and all sorts of baseball fans, he wasn't a particularly great role model. And that makes him, if you will, in the traditional theatrical sense, a truly tragic hero. And that's a good thing to be. And that ultimately, that's really what got me started on the book. I wanted to write I like the arc.
When did he become self-aware of his need to please his father and start to deal with it? Was it during his playing days or after his playing days?
No, much after his playing days. I know what I read, like a lot of people did, when he was dying in the hospital in Baylor University, that people said, well, he jumped the line to get the liver and it wasn't fair, and those sorts of things. And so I started looking into that. And it turns out I think it was fair. He got the liver transplant appropriately. He was on the priority list where he should have been, and he wasn't given favoritism because he was a star. But I started looking into that, and that took me into the story of his father, because just before his father died, Mickey and Mutt were in the same hospital, in bed side by side. Mutt's dying of lung disease. Mickey's dealing with his leg. I don't know if you know the story, of course, stepping on the sprinkler head in center field and screwing up his knee.
Yes.
So
becoming
the 1951
he might have been.
Yes. Yeah, we're all pretty familiar with that. There was an
Yeah,
earlier incident with him tearing up his leg as well when he was a kid, wasn't there?
Yeah, and that's what led to all the injuries later in his life. He goes to his father one day and he says, "Dad, my three best friends are all going to play football this year for the high school football team. I need to do that too." Mutt says, "There ain't no way you're playing football, period. Forget about it. You're a baseball player. You're not going to play football. You're going to get injured." The coach of the high school team comes to Mutt and says, "Mutt, you've got to let Mickey play. You owe it to the town. You owe it to the high school. It's part of what we do around here. This is baseball country. This is football country. This is not baseball country. Your son has got to play, or everybody in town is going to be angry at it with him." So Mutt very reluctantly agrees to let Mickey play football in one of his very first practices before there's even a game. He's kicked in the ankle. It turns into osteomyelitis. The hospital turns out to have a brand new medicine, and really it was new. Very few hospitals had it. It's called penicillin. And they started shooting him up with penicillin, and it didn't work. So Mickey's in and out of the hospital 3 or 4 times, and they finally call in the parents and they say, "We've got some really bad news for you. The penicillin's not working. We're going to have to take the leg off."
Ooh.
Well, Mutt falls apart, as you might imagine. But his wife, Lavelle, Mickey's mother, she was a firecracker. She was just a spitfire. She turns to the doctor and literally says, "You ain't taking that leg off today. You ain't taking it off tomorrow. You ain't never taking the damn leg off. Let's get out of here." Well, long story short, of course, they didn't take the leg off. We know that. But that was the cause of the weakness in that leg. Always bothered him. And I think that's part of why he suffered the injuries that he did. It was the same leg where he stepped on the left ankle, the left leg, where he stepped on that sprinkler. And a lot of people to this day will tell you Mickey may have been the greatest player who ever played the game had he not been injured. And that's the football injury, and that's where it came from.
So in the plot line of him wanting to please his father his entire life, living with that injury that went against his father's wishes to play football must have been devastating for him. Must have been really tough for him to deal with.
It absolutely devastating to him. He was in tears, and he was a completely broken kid for a long time. The interesting sidelight to that, though, is he got shot with so many drugs, including the penicillin, that when he went into the hospital, he was really small. And everybody talked about he was too small to be the athlete that he wanted to be. Shortly after he got out of the hospital, after the number of months that he was there, he started bulking up. It may be, and I don't know this, it's just purely conjecture on my part, it may be that those drugs acted as if they were performance drugs. They weren't given to him for that reason, of course, but so many of his friends who later wrote about Mickey, when Mickey became famous, reporters would go to his friends and say, "Tell us about Mickey growing up, and tell us about your time with him in high school." And they would say, "We just couldn't believe what he looked like when he came out of the hospital. He looked buffed, and he put on weight. He was much stronger." So although that injury led to a lot of problems when he was playing with the Yankees, it may also have helped him bulk up and have the strength that he ultimately did. He was also incredibly fast. People don't realize that. I mean, Nick Mann was a real burner, and he was offered a scholarship to the University of Oklahoma to play for Bud Wilkinson.
Wow.
So interesting. So Howard, as I had mentioned, I was born in Brooklyn, and so was my father. I did not grow up in Brooklyn. My dad did, playing stickball. Did you play stickball, Howard, growing up?
Oh yeah, I played stickball a lot. That was the game in the streets. That's what we played.
So that and my dad claims that he played football. There was no grass in Brooklyn, so he played on the concrete. And he says that that's why his knees are what they are today. And in fact, Howard, my dad says that he can tell when it's going to rain because the pressure, with the weather, he can feel it in his knees. And so he usually has a pretty high success rate of predicting when it's going to rain because of his, childhood, knee situation there in Brooklyn. I'm curious, Howard, how long did you live in Brooklyn for?
I went until I went to college. I went to Ohio State University and left for good. But stickball was the game. That's what we played, and we played. We were Willie, Mickey, and the Duke. I had three good friends. We were
That's exactly what my dad told me. But my dad stayed locally for school. He went to Baruch College and was not smart enough to get out of the state so that he could be out of his parents' wrath, if you will. But I wanted to share with you just a very brief experience that I had. So I graduated Rutgers College in 2000, Howard. And, I always wanted to do something I loved for work. As you were joking and alluding to earlier, I've always had a few passions. One of them was playing baseball. And I was pretty good. Certainly not good enough, though, to play alongside Jeter at second base. I would have let him have shortstop, no doubt. So anyway, Howard, my second job out of Rutgers College in the early 2000s was working for an auction house. And that auction house was in New York. And long story short, we got a call from a family in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Okay. And that family claimed to have a World Series bat that belonged to Mickey Mantle that he used. And as you just alluded to a little bit earlier, there couldn't have been that many bats he used in the 1951 World Series as he got hurt. Well, right? I don't remember how many bats he had. It was only a handful. And so it turned out, it was so interesting how you brought up Mickey and his intersection with football as he was growing up. So this family was someone that was a family that was not only prominent in Tulsa, but they had some connections politically, I believe, in commerce. And so I flew down as a young 20-year-old something man to represent my company, Leighton's, at the time. And we were hoping to secure this bat. I wasn't going to try to buy it, Howard. I was going to try to get it on consignment, which is the idea of the family giving it to us. We would charge a fee to sell it for them at public auction. And, obviously not just the amount of money that our company could make, but there was a real prestige in unearthing an artifact that had not seen the light of day really since 1951. And I have to go back to my not just my memory bank, but maybe I could reach out to my buddies Hef and Josh from Leland's and ask them if they remember some of the details. But I'm pretty sure that this family knew the football coach of his high school.
Oh.
Wow.
I could find out the details, or at least try. But this is what was really interesting. So I flew down there, and I really wanted to come back with the bat, like in the worst way, Howard, I could taste it. And when I say that, meaning I wanted to sign a contract with the family. I wanted them to be excited that it was going to be in the auction. We were going to put it on the cover. That was something I had like an ace up my sleeve. We were going to put the item on the cover. And I really was willing to do, a lot to get this bat on consignment. Not just for, once again, the money, but really for the prestige. Was going to be super proud. So, Howard, they asked me if I was interested in seeing where Mickey grew up. Now, realize I flew down to Tulsa, so I didn't need to inspect the bat. I was not a bat expert. I didn't tell them I was. I couldn't prove to them or tell them, with 100% certainty if their bat was game used and was worth, X amount of dollars. But what I was very good at was talking with people, connecting, and telling them about the process, making them feel as comfortable as possible, and let them know that I would be by their side the entire time, not just only rooting for them, but also hoping that their item would sell for, big money. And so I was there for the day, the night, and I didn't fly out to the next day. So the gentleman, if I remember, he was an attorney, but, an attorney like the old school way. Like he had an office. It was, in the South, like you could imagine, the air conditioning wasn't so great. Everyone was super friendly. There was biscuits from the morning still left. And he said, "You want to take a ride?" And I'm thinking, like, maybe we're going to meet someone that grew up, around Mickey or something like that, whatever the case is. And he said, "No, let's take a ride to see where Mickey grew up." And I know some of the things you mentioned, and I didn't want to, start off the show talking about me, Howard, because really your book sounds fantastic and I can't wait to check it out. But I was fortunate enough to not only be escorted and be driven to where Mickey grew up, but to be given some of the verbal history that you shared to start with. Well, they not only shared that with me firsthand, but I actually, and I'm getting goosebumps now. And please, I'm not saying that you would have wrote a better book because of this, but you had said something at the beginning of the interview that I thought was really interesting. You didn't know what you would have hoped, or you don't know what you could have gained from being there in person. And Howard, I will never be as good a writer as you, I have no doubt. But what you potentially missed was the feeling of his spirit of being there. And I know that sounds corny, but I can tell you that with the people that escorted me there, being able to be in his childhood home, seeing those meager upbringings right in front of your face, and seeing the dents on that barn for myself as opposed to a picture is something that if I was good a writer as you, I would have wrote about that. And so it was unbelievable, Howard. And I would encourage you that whatever next project that you take on, that if you have the ability to go and experience it for yourself, to please try, because it's something I'll never forget. I wish I had the videos that are on my old cell phone, but I never forgot it. And, we talked about a lot of different aspects of Mickey's upbringing, and not just his upbringing, but the town, the way you described it. It was poor, and it was not just poor. These people were dying over time because of the mills that they were working in. And like, this is where Mickey Mantle grew up. It was really wild how to see it in person.
How much of that, Howard, the mines, how much of that was in Mutt's mind? What drove him to want Mickey to become a baseball player? Was it basically he wanted him to avoid the mines, or he just wanted a baseball player's son?
Yeah, it was to avoid the mines. Mutt tried a couple of different things. He tried being a tenant farmer for a while. That didn't work out. This is the Depression. This was the Dust Bowl. These are difficult times. And he worked deep in the mines. He was what they called a screen ape most of his life, swinging a hammer, breaking up rocks. I know I've read other books that have said, well, that's how Mickey developed his muscles working with his dad in the mines. Not true. He never worked with his father in the mines. His father didn't want him anywhere near the mines. His father said, I want Mickey to have a better life than I have. And I only know how to do two things. I know how to work in the mines, and I know how to play baseball. He played baseball all over the area. He was a semi-pro ball player. If there was a game on Sunday, you'd find Mutt playing ball all over. So, no, he wanted Mickey to get out of the mines. That was his dream. That was giving Mickey a better life. What is really interesting about it, and I can't answer this, I tried to talk to some of his old friends and things and get an answer, but I couldn't. Mickey had 3 brothers and a sister. And why Mutt didn't work with them in the same way that he worked with Mickey, I do not know.
Interesting.
Well, if I could show as we're closing the interview, this is our own little Mickey Mantle. This is my son Crosby, who as of right now has chosen number 2 for his first ever Little League T-ball season. And right now he's a southpaw, Howard. I know you can't see it because you're just on the phone with us, but I know some of you out there can. And, I don't have a barn here, but I enjoy pitching to him underhand in the backyard. And he's walloped a few in practice. But really, there's nothing better, Howard, than a father and a son, a mother and a son, or a mother and a daughter, a father and a daughter connecting through baseball in such an innocent way. Especially, as you're mentioning, it was just such a different time in the world. They weren't doing great economically in that part of our country. And so for Mickey to be able to get out, unbelievable.
Yeah. Absolutely. The whole idea of fathers talking to their sons about baseball is so critical. I know, I couldn't talk to my father about his job. I couldn't talk to him about whether Eisenhower was a good president or a bad president or what was going on with the stock market. But boy, we could talk about baseball. That's where we met. I mean, that was the common denominator, and I know I wasn't alone.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally, Howard. I'm sorry, Luke. Were you going to say the same?
these days you get the kids away from the phone, get them away from the video games, and get out and have a have a catch with them and have a conversation. There's nothing to do when you're playing catch except have a conversation, and it's a great opportunity.
Absolutely.
Howard, I'm going to leave you with this. So I grew up in Central New Jersey. I played sports everywhere in every league possible all the time. My parents would have to yell at me to come home. If we got grounded, it wasn't like I couldn't go to the mall or I couldn't go get pizza. I couldn't go outside to play. That's, what was taken away from us. And so that's how important it was to me. I didn't play stickball, but I certainly loved it growing up, and I hope that Crosby loves it too. But I wanted to share this funny little anecdote with you because I'm sure, something similar may have happened in your household. It sounds like if you did this to your father's newspaper. So in my household, Howard, we still got the newspaper delivered every day. And I would say minimum 4 to 5 days a week, definitely on Sunday when they had the big expanded sports section with the leaders. This is, of course, prior to the internet. I could hear my father still yelling now. And by the way, my dad's alive, but it was so piercing. Son, God damn it, where's the sports page? And I'm like, I don't remember. And I mean, yeah, I had it. Like, you called me red-handed, Howard.
There you are.
All right, Howard, we appreciate your time, and we know you've got problems with the wildfires out there, and lots of success with the book. We got a lot of people interested in the audience, so we appreciate you taking some time to be with us tonight.
Thanks very much. It was really a good conversation. I enjoyed it very much. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being on, Howard. Really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. And please stay healthy and safe out there. And, we're going to buy a few copies of your book, and we're going to give it away on our future streams here on Leighton's Loft Facebook page, as well as our Vintage Break. So thanks, Howard.
Sounds great. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
All right. That was fun.
That was a lot of fun. So let's get Dougie in to give away the 7 prizes we have today, led off by Mr. Tatis. This kid is tearing up the baseball world.
Oh, God, yeah.
And he's very entertaining, Lou.
Oh, yeah, he's a terrific ball player too. Yeah, so he's not only a good ball player, he's entertaining. He's what they need more than. I'm not dissing Mike Trout in any way. He was a terrific ball player, but no personality there.
Yep. So Tatis is first place, Dougie. $50 break credit, 1979 on Peachy hockey set spot. Last 4. We'll get a $10 break credit. Thanks for tuning in today to our podcast here, Leighton's Loft.
All right, Leighton, I just need you to roll the dice.
You got it, Dougie.
All right,
8 times.
All right. Here we go.
Lou, great guest. I thought Howard was wonderful.
Yeah, it was terrific and a great story. And that's the story of Mickey Mantle we don't hear too often.
It's exactly what I said on the show. It's very easy to find his stats. Real easy to find out what happened at the end of his life. It was very public. Before, not that easy.
But both of you painted a very vivid picture of Oklahoma in the time that Mickey Mantle was growing up, and that's not something that's in a lot of our wheelhouses or a lot of our experiences. We don't understand, no running water in some places, posted.
Oh, it was crazy. And it was funny because I remember when the family asked, did I want to go? Hey, Ryan, he was surprised. He goes, Leighton, it's nothing exciting to see. I have to agree with how much more. Oh, interesting. Yeah. And by the way, Howard, we love you. I wasn't trying to, because I see we just got a comment there. I just wanted to be authentic and tell them, I've been there. It's even more jarring when you see that wall. Like, they literally have it there as a monument.
Yeah.
It's pelted. It's pelted. And then when you go in his home, you're like, this kid came out of this to become Mickey Mantle?
Is the house and the walls specifically preserved and it marked off as?
So I to be fair, I haven't been there, Lou, in 12, 15 years, but give or take, let's just say it was the same. I believe that there's no one living in that home, but I believe that there's still people in the community. But exactly as Howard said, the community is not what it once was. Parts of that area are literally forbidden to live in.
Really?
Yeah, but it was very open and barren. Like, it's not like there's hills and just a lot of land.
Sounds like a mining town, right?
Yes, exactly.
All right, Dougie, where are we? We've done our...
Oh, line of the show. Sorry, but James Gottschall, we would get 2 papers on Sunday. Dad and each would get our own. Here's the deal. there's no effing way my dad would have spent the money to buy 2 newspapers. That wasn't going to happen. But that's fantastic, James. You were living the life, man.
All right. Our 7 winners. Number 1, Brian Hawbaker. Number 2, Kenneth Gantman. Number 3, Chef Ted. Number 4, Kevin Jacobson. Number 5, Matthew Townsend. Number 6, Ryan Smack. And number 7, Mark Ferreira.
Well, great. Listen, before leave up that screen for a second so I can tell everyone they won. But before we do, listen, Lou has been doing an unbelievable job behind the scenes, kind of keeping me in line here, making sure we have a fantastic show every week, getting us guests now. So, Lou, thank you very much. It's been a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun today. And I want to encourage you all, please listen to Lou. When he asked for you to share it as a watch party and to get the word out there in the different communities, we're doing that because we're trying to expand our reach. And the more folks we have watch us, there's no doubt that we're going to get better guests, we're going to have better giveaways, and we're going to have more fun.
Oh, yeah, so fun. The community here, just watching the comments as we go through the show. Basically, these people are co-hosts. I love that party. I want to expand it. I want like-minded people. All you guys are great, and it's just a blast doing this show.
Yeah, well, thanks again for joining us, everybody. So today's winners are Brian Hawbaker, big winner with the Tatis. Second up is, I can't read that exactly.
It's Kenneth Gantman.
Oh, congratulations, Ken. You won a $50 break credit. Chef, 79 OPG Hockey. That'd be nice if Gretzky was going to a hockey town there in Minnesota with Chef and his kids. And then Kev, Matt, Ryan, and Mark each win a $10 break credit to vintagebreaks.com. If you could hook them up with that, Dougie.
Yep.
And lastly, I would not be. I just want to say it. I miss you, Argy Bear, very much. I love you, and we'll never forget you. Happy National Dog Day for those that are proud dog owners or those that have lost their beloved friends. Love you forever, Argy Bear. Have a good one, guys. Thank you so much.